Welcome to The Joyful Exchange, a podcast from Foundation for the Nations, also known as FFTN.
Ever wish there was a philanthropic, Christ-centered giving vehicle where you decide the giving and have fun doing it? Welcome to FFTN.
FFTN aims to draw together Youth for Christ projects from around the world with those who have the capacity to help them. Our motto is wealth into worth for the world, and our desire is to help those who are cash rich but time poor to make good decisions about where to invest their hard-earned money. Our FFTN staff and board have over 200 years' experience in working within the Youth for Christ family. Youth for Christ uniquely reaches young people in ways that are relevant to them in the context of their culture and life circumstances, giving every young person in every nation an opportunity to be a follower of Jesus Christ. For more details, see the links in the podcast bio. The Joyful Exchange podcast therefore exists to encourage and celebrate the generosity of people and the eternal impact that their giving is having amongst the young people of the world served by Youth for Christ. This is The Joyful Exchange, hosted by Simon Marriott. Joining us today on the podcast is none other than John Duncan. John has over 50 years in youth ministry experience and is FFTN's founding president. He's married to Maisie and has two daughters, Sarah and Emma. We joined John for a catch-up during his sabbatical after a 10-year stretch with Foundation for the Nations and surprisingly discuss everything from heroin to inline skating and reflect on the joys of serving the worldwide movement of Youth for Christ. Let's jump into this week's Joyful Exchange. John, welcome.
Thank you.
You're currently on sabbatical, taking some time out from FFTN. How's that going? And even just give us an idea, what has the Lord been teaching you through this time of sabbatical?
It's been very busy so far. I'm still waiting to slide into a wee bit of relaxation, but we've been sort of connecting with supporters, with neighbours, with the new church and so on, because we just moved to an apartment here 8 months ago. Things the Lord's been teaching me, well, one of them has been deeper humility, which I'm very proud of. Yes. Because as an experienced traveller, I made a real mess of some travel arrangements over the summer. So that has been good for me.
Okay.
In a bad sense, or,
yes,
or bad for me in a good sense, whatever. But I've also, one of the things that's been really hitting me this year about just spiritual stuff is just the importance of truth and trying to get people that you love and respect and admire, but who aren't believers at all, to just see and admit the importance of truth, of absolute truth.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've been doing during my sabbatical, I did a little mini missions tour around some of my unsaved relatives and my old college flatmate, just talking to them about spiritual things, because they're all either in their 70s or 80s, and so far no spiritual interest.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give them one more push.
Yeah. Sounds good. And even just before, we were talking about with the invention of AI and its capabilities and all of that type of stuff, that even more today, it's harder to discern, what is a statement that someone has actually said or something that has been superimposed through AI.
Yeah.
So I think that trust piece and conversation is really important at the minute.
Yeah. It's AI, it's like everything, like I was even talking to a guy last night at church about how important heroin is whenever you're treating terrible pain.
Yes.
Dimorphine is just heroin. So good things can be used for bad purposes and vice versa.
Yeah.
Trying to help people to think clearly,
Yeah.
Which I have to start doing first before I can help anybody else to do it.
Yeah.
In the whole realm of what is, for example, something happens to us after we die. And it may be that we cease to exist. It may be that there's nirvana. It may mean that there's reincarnation. Or it may mean that there's judgment and heaven or hell.
Yeah.
But just getting folks to admit that something happens, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I had to take part in a humanist funeral of a good friend of mine recently. And his wife wanted me to bring a biblical point of view. And that was pretty difficult.
Wow. I'm just thinking how heavy this has got right from the get-go. But this
Sorry
is...
about that.
No, this is
But
great.
you asked me what the Lord was teaching me.
And even I'm just thinking, we're here in the Methodist Church in Hollywood, which is your newfound home or office.
Office, yeah.
And there's a poster on the wall about, God is speaking. Am I listening? And I think as we enter in to some of those conversations with people who maybe don't yet know the Lord, there's a lot of listening has to be done first on our behalf before we set out into those. Foundation for the Nations, let's talk a little bit about that. Foundation for the Nations recently celebrated 10 years. What have been some of the highlights as you've reflected back over the years?
Well, I think the biggest highlight by far has been, and it's a kind of general one, but the biggest one by far, I think, has been giving smaller Youth for Christ nations and programs a reason to hope that what they've dreamed about for years, maybe, what they've thought they could do if only they had the money, giving them reason to think, okay, if we take care of the money part, you've got the vision, you've got the creativity, you've got the cultural background. If we help you to make it happen, can you make it happen? And it's been tremendous to watch smaller nations beginning to actually think, maybe we could do this,
Yeah.
I think that's been by far the biggest highlight.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other big highlight is just watching wealthy people having such fun giving away big chunks of their own money.
Yeah.
That inspires me every year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose as we've travelled around a bit and heard feedback from different nations and also from the partners, there's this great sense of being in it together. Prior to starting FFTN, you were Youth for Christ Area Director for Europe, Middle East and North Africa. What did that entail? What was the catalyst for then establishing the foundation? I think you've covered some of this already.
Well, it entailed looking after around 30 nations, not as director, but as the kind of Youth for Christ International person responsible for encouraging them, shepherding them in a sense, motivating them, pastoring them. At that time, there were about 750 staff around that whole area. And it has grown since under Edward de Cam and now more under Marika. But the essence of that job probably is traveling.
Yeah.
So for 13 years, I was pretty much on the road every other week.
Yeah.
1 week in the office and 1 week traveling. Very early in my time as the area director, I felt the Lord saying to me, you're not to be the director of this in the traditional sense. I want you to be father to the national directors.
Yeah.
And to take that role, helping them as a father would his children.
Yeah.
And I think that was helpful to me in helping me to understand how to act and how to react.
I think to anybody that knows you and knows you well, your approach is always to come alongside as a father figure. I don't think it was something that you had to learn. I think it was probably something that the Lord had already put within you, but he just confirmed that by giving you the opportunity and then drawing that out.
Could be. But he probably made it specific.
Yeah. Talk about some of the challenges, because that's quite a diverse area in terms of nations. And what were some of the challenges that you faced back then?
Learning about Islam was a very steep learning curve, and learning about the fact that there are so many different shades of Islam, from very fundamentalist through to ethnic or cultural. That was a big learning curve. Learning about the difference between Lutherans and evangelicals, and the fact that some Lutherans are evangelicals. Learning about the Orthodox Church, trying to find evangelicals within the Orthodox traditions, and the fact that there are two or three Orthodox traditions.
Yes.
That's all a steep learning curve. And then trying to pioneer Youth for Christ in new nations where there was no name recognition, there was no credibility. I mean, even Billy Graham, that I would have thought everybody in the Western world would have known Billy Graham. Lots of people didn't.
Yeah.
He was our first full-time worker back in the middle 40s.
Yeah.
You had to be careful not to set somebody up to fail. Finding a really good youth worker and saying, okay, you can be our representative in this country. Let's take a country like Serbia. You can be the Serbian national director. But nobody knows that person. They're pretty well unknown. Nobody knows Youth for Christ. So how do you get them started? So one of the things I realized, which played into beginning FFTN, was we can tell everybody they can use the Youth for Christ name, they can use the logo, they can use the typeface, they can use all the ministry models. The only thing we won't do for them is give them any money. I mean, that's not still the case now, but it was in those days. And so you almost set somebody up to be totally discouraged and to, they can't raise all their own finances. So unless somebody brings money in from outside to get them going, they're just not going to make it.
And so that's where the sort of desire for FFTN was birthed. Tell me this. So each year we receive over 100 projects from Youth for Christ national directors around the world. So how have those applications changed over the years as you reflect back?
One obvious change is that more of the regions and the 4 areas are now applying. They're now seeing the benefit of getting some external funding coming in. I think from the nations, the projects haven't changed that much. There's still capital projects like building a camp or a camp extension, staff support, the need for a vehicle to get around places like Haiti or Tajikistan, humanitarian work in, say, Lebanon, in Egypt, working in the dumps, in rubbish dumps. So stuff like that, I think, has stayed fairly constant.
Yeah.
And then pioneering into a new country. So they're pretty much the same. And interestingly, the average ask has stayed fairly constant.
That's right, yeah.
And the average gift has stayed fairly constant. The average award now is around $25,000, $26,000.
Yes.
And that has been fairly constant over all the years.
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry, guys. Just real fast. So I'm sure that our listeners are wondering, if they're not already involved, how can they get involved in giving? Which is an excellent question. Fortunately, there are 2 ways. So option number 1, as an enabling partner, you can actually commit to praying and, if you'd like, contribute monthly to help the foundation keep its wheels on the road. So that could be $5 or $50 a month. The world is your oyster. Or as a project partner, where you can sit around the table at one of our annual gatherings, you get to give your hard-earned cash with confidence to some of these wonderful projects that we've been discussing.
Okay, well, even thinking about like innovation and creativity within youth ministry, are there any projects that stand out over the years, like maybe 1 or 2 specific projects?
One that I remember from Russia was an inline skating program in Sochi on the Black Sea. The town of Sochi is about 140 kilometers long, apparently. And one of the Youth for Christ staff there had the idea of doing inline skating along that waterfront. We helped to fund that.
Yeah.
There were many others. I mean, not particularly innovative, but tremendously impactful.
Yeah.
Like in Bangladesh, putting another story onto a children's home.
Yeah.
They take kids off the street and look after them until they're old enough to work. But they also put them through school, put them through exams, say for nursing and stuff like that, or to university entrance exams. Interrupt that whole cycle of poverty and give them a completely integrated platform for change in their life and change in their family circumstances.
And with those 2 distinctives that we always talk about, evangelism and discipleship, but whether that's capital or whether it's educational or whatever it might be, I think it's the beauty of the FFTN model is that there is a smorgasbord of opportunities and projects for people to get involved in supporting.
Yes. And I mean, we have a terrific partnership with Youth for Christ. We're simply in the background helping their projects to move ahead.
Yeah.
But they're the folks who are doing the day-to-day supervision and guaranteeing the integrity of the project, if you like.
Yeah.
But You raise a good point about the components of evangelism, say, and I remember having a conversation with somebody that I was hoping would become a partner, but who didn't. And his problem was he only wanted to give money for direct evangelism.
Yes.
And I was using an example of the camp in
Czech
Republic
Republic.
that
Yeah.
you know well,
Yeah.
having worked there. And he didn't want to give any money for anything to do with the camp apart from straightforward evangelism. And so we talked about how, the kids could have a great game of football in the morning. They could have a great talk right after the football. But then you would announce, okay, it's time for lunch now, kids. And then they went towards the main building, but there was no lunch because there were no tables,
Yeah.
and there were no chairs, and there was no kitchen, and there were no toilets, and there were no showers. It was very difficult to persuade this chap that all of that was part of evangelism.
Yeah.
And it stood on a number of legs, and if you took some of the legs away, the whole thing collapsed.
Just talking about partners, I suppose we and they have experienced the joy of giving, and even just thinking of Jesus's words, more blessed to give than receive. What have the partners given to date in terms of maybe over the last 10 years or so and the impact of that? And who makes a good partner?
Figures are, since we started now, there's been about $13 million have gone into just about 500 projects around the world. What makes a good partner? They don't have to be wealthy. They have to have a giving heart.
Yeah.
They have to enjoy giving. I mean, you can't make somebody give who doesn't want to give.
Yeah.
So the folks that are involved with us, I think everyone is a cheerful giver.
Yeah.
As it says in 2 Corinthians. They enjoy giving. They've mostly got everything they need and want in the world. This is on the hierarchy of self-realization.
Yeah, it's almost like in terms of their own successes, this maybe adds a bit of additional significance
Maybe.
to their life and their giving. Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, it probably does. But I think it's even more spiritual than that.
Yeah.
I think many of them are giving in their mind, they're giving directly to the Lord.
Yeah.
They're trusting us to be responsible with their money. They, at heart, I think they absolutely enjoy giving money to stuff that will have a kingdom impact.
Excellent. Excellent. Last little thing, anything you'd like to add just as we close out the podcast?
It has been a privilege to be involved. It has been very exciting. It has been great to work with Youth for Christ. I mean, we are very much a servant to them.
Yeah.
We rejoice when they rejoice.
Yeah.
We feel it because you and I know so many people who are Youth for Christ national directors and area directors, regional directors. They're mostly our friends.
Yeah.
So we're rejoicing with them when stuff goes well,
Yeah.
and we feel it when stuff goes badly. To me, it's been one of the best jobs I've ever done because, I mean, there's not really a downside. We can't make new partners give money, so we rely on the Lord to send whatever money He sends, and we're simply the people who are facilitating the giving process.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good job.
It is a pretty good job. John, thanks so much for your time. I hope you like a warm beverage, because for all those that feature on the podcast, we have a little thank you. Our No Mug mug, inspired by the words of Jim Elliot, the famous American missionary. He is no mug. That is, he is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. John, one of those is on its way to you. And to our listeners, we hope you'll join us for another Joyful Exchange, when we'll be featuring inspiring conversations with visionary partners, ministry leaders, and change agents who are transforming wealth into worth for the world.
Foundation for the Nations is a Christ-centered giving vehicle facilitating Christian philanthropy and kingdom-minded investment, creating opportunities to make an eternal difference in the lives of young people around the globe served by Youth for Christ. You've been listening to the Joyful Exchange podcast. For more details, see www.fftn.org/joyfulexchange.